What's happening, y'all? Corey Buschlen from Fantasy Stock Exchange coming at you to bring you the Week 12 DFS recap. As I do every Monday, I go over the DraftKings Millionaire Maker winning lineup, go over the FanDuel Sunday Million winning lineup, and then also my own lineup, some of the ones that I played this weekend. A lot of excitement for myself this week. Took home probably my biggest week of the entire season. So we'll get right into this, not waste any time. Let's start with the Millionaire Maker winning contest. And this guy, I really love what this guy did. Great lineup construction. As you guys can see on the screen right now, he took Stafford, Henderson, OBJ stack, didn't bring it back with anybody, but he did fade Cooper Kupp in that stack, right? You got to imagine most of the people that played Matthew Stafford, which wasn't very many, 3.5% ownership on Matthew Stafford in this contest with all the injury news and the scare that came out before the game, basically. That was leverage against Darrell Henderson, of course, because you had Stafford and Henderson. They connected for a receiving touchdown. No Cooper Kupp in this game. He probably had the worst game of his entire season. Great season so far, but did have a down game in this one. And you stack him up with OBJ, who caught a long touchdown. So great leverage stack that he did with Matthew Stafford. I think that is an incredibly sharp move that he did there. Another pretty smart move here was Jalen Waddle and Robbie Anderson mini stack. Obviously, Robbie Anderson didn't work out, but Jalen Waddle, again, if you trust the usage, if you trust the target share, similar to what I talked about last week, sometimes we can get very wrapped up in matchup. Jalen Waddle had a horrible matchup, but the usage and the target share was there. Definitely made a lot of people pay that faded him, including myself. I didn't play any Jalen Waddle this week, and he definitely did very well at 6.4% ownership. Mixon and Fournette, two very sharp running back plays, in my opinion. I think when you're looking at the running back position each and every week, it's very important to understand where the ownership is going to go, because typically this week we saw either the ownership go very high or go to the middle of the pack type of running backs, because we saw, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, a lot of these guys were getting a lot of steam at the top. And then Saquon Barkley, Miles Sanders, James Robinson were expected to get the steam in the mid-range of running backs. Guys like Joe Mixon and Leonard Fournette, who are kind of the middle to upper end of the tier at running back, but weren't quite the elite guys. Those guys were lost in the shuffle, meaning these guys were tremendous leverage plays, because it really differentiated your lineup to have these guys into your lineup, because most people either played the really expensive running backs or the really cheap running backs and probably had to spend up or spend down at other positions entirely. Gronk and Henderson, of course, were expected to be very popular plays, and they were, but that's pretty much the only chalky 8. I didn't even expect Joe Mixon to be 11.8%. So that's a little higher than I expected coming into the week, but great lineup construction, great ownership dispersion that he did as well. And one thing that he did, Dolphins defense was very popular on FanDuel, but it was a lot more expensive on DraftKings. Therefore, you get the process argument for the Dolphins defense was that it was a really good matchup for them against a turnover-prone Cam Newton quarterback. And on DraftKings, you had to spend up for it. And because he went at the middle tier running backs, he had the salary to do that. So great job. Great millionaire making winning lineup there. I think that guy just was a tremendous lineup construction. So let's move on to my first lineup of the day. And this was also in the Millionaire Maker contest. So I don't usually play the Millionaire Maker on DraftKings. I usually only play it on FanDuel because it's only $5 as opposed to $20 on DraftKings. But as you guys can see, this is the lineup that I entered. I think from an ownership perspective, I do really like what I did here. I didn't have a whole lot of chalky plays. Didn't have, I knew Gronkowski was going to be chalky. I knew Najee Harris was going to be pretty popular. But aside from that, I didn't overly spend up ownership-wise. So that is something that I definitely did well. Burrow to Chase, CJ Uzomah, Deontay Johnson on the way back. I figured that would be kind of like a contrarian Joe Burrow stack that not a lot of people were going to do. I figured a lot of people were going to play Higgins. A lot of people were going to play Najee Harris as well on the way back, which is what I did. So I kind of stacked up that game in general. But I expected that game to be high scoring. It was for one side of the ball, wasn't for the other side. If the Steelers were able to put up some points on the other side, this lineup could have been a lot better in terms of the overall ceiling of it. I really liked Cordero Patterson, similar to Joe Mixon and Leonard Fournette. He was a great lost in the shuffle type of play at running back who projected to be, a guy with a high ceiling this week, but not a lot of people were going to have the salary to play him because they were going to go up to, Christian McCaffrey's and Jonathan Taylor's and Najee Harris's, and they would need to play Miles Sanders or Ty Johnson or some of these lower priced running backs in order to do that. So definitely really like that play for myself there. Jacoby Myers was 2 yards short of the 100-yard bonus, as was Deontay Johnson 5 yards short of the 100-yard bonus. So I kind of got screwed on that part. But CJ Uzomah, I still think was a good play at tight end. Gronkowski, I went with a dual tight end build. Like I said, I knew Gronkowski was going to be popular, but at 4,400 for the flex options that I was looking for, Gronkowski projected by far the best out of all those guys that were in that price range. So I was okay going with a double tight end build. And then the Giants defense, 1.4%. Really liked that matchup. Jalen Hurts is an up and down quarterback. I'm always looking to target players like that. And again, similar to what I said with the Dolphins defense too, is that this Giants defense has been playing better as of late, and you have a home defense on their home turf against a turnover-prone quarterback. Guy has a bit of up and down play. Really liked that. Momentum is pretty key for defenses in general. So defenses that are playing well typically are defenses that I like playing in DFS, especially if they've been bad throughout the entirety of the season. If they're playing well recently, I really like playing those guys in DFS. So let's go on to the second lineup of mine on DraftKings. This one, not as much success. Of course, I was in a smaller field tournament for this one. Just under a min cash is basically where I finished. You needed to be, I believe, in the top 400 in order to cash the minimum in this one. I'll just briefly go over this one. Cousins, Jefferson, and Debo. I went for a 2x1 stack in this one, expecting a big Jags win. I also went James Robinson, Dan Arnold in the Jags defense. I figured if the Jags were going to win this game, it was going to be due to James Robinson running the ball. Maybe Dan Arnold catches a red zone touchdown and the Jags defense gets a bunch of turnovers in this game. I think that was good process, but obviously didn't necessarily work out. I wanted to play the Jaguars defense, but I wanted a way to differentiate it. So I went and paired it with James Robinson and Dan Arnold to just stack up that side of the ball. Didn't necessarily work out. Again, I think I played a little too much James Robinson this week because he was expected to be very popular. Same goes for Javonte Williams. I thought he was a guy that was going to be popular. He actually came in a little bit lower than I expected. But I did want to play him because I thought he was in a good spot. Ty Johnson, of course, was a salary saving play. I knew he was going to be popular. 18% is pretty much what I expected. But at 4,300 for the volume that I was expecting him to get, I would play him probably again in order to fit other pieces into my lineup. Again, this lineup, pretty decent from an ownership perspective. The only thing that I would have done differently is probably not play James Robinson, just because I knew he was going to be popular and I knew I was probably going to be eating a lot of ownership at Jefferson, Samuel, and Ty Johnson. And of course, I played a chalk defense, which is a big no-no for a lot of people. So that's kind of what I would have changed about that lineup. But here's really where my day got interesting. And I was down a lot in the early window of games. I had a couple lineups. None of them were doing well. The only one that min cash was the Millionaire Maker lineup that I showed you before with Joe Burrow. So what I did was I entered actually a afternoon only slate contest of about 117 people on DraftKings, and I actually won it. So I came home with first place. You guys can see it on the screen right now. I did so poorly until I entered the afternoon only slate that I needed some luck and I needed to help save my day. And I definitely got what I was looking for. So quick process here. I'll skim this over because it's not a full main slate lineup, but I onslaughted the Chargers, Herbert, Eckler, Keenan Allen, Jared Cook. I expected them to put up a lot of points in this game. I didn't bring it back with anybody, which was actually a mistake. I probably should have with Javonte Williams was probably who I was going to bring it back with, but I made this lineup at like 3:59 Eastern time, and the Broncos game started at 4:05. So I didn't really have enough time to screw around with it and make sure it was, double check it, make sure it was good. Good thing I didn't, because I probably would have subbed out. Actually, I probably would have subbed out Darrell Henderson. So it probably would have worked out for me. But either way, that's basically what I intended to do. I did try to leverage basically the plays that I made in my other lineups, which was the Debo and Jefferson stack that I really liked. So I went with Eli Mitchell and Adam Thielen, which ended up working out well for me. The last second Jared Cook touchdown for Justin Herbert was actually the nail in the coffin for this one. I won this contest by quite a bit, actually. I had 165 fantasy points. The next closest person was 151. So I actually smoked everybody in this contest, which was definitely fun for me to see. And I kind of faded the chalk game as well, with the Rams and Packers game being the most popular for quarterbacks, especially. I didn't want to play those guys. So I went with Henderson, MVS, and the Packers defense as kind of like leverage plays against that, because I figured everybody was going to be playing Kupp and Adams, Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, et cetera, et cetera. So that's basically what I did in that one. So that one definitely saved my bankroll on DraftKings. Let's move on to FanDuel before I make this video a little bit too long. But the Sunday Million lineup, as you guys can see, was not nearly as good in terms of correlation and how it was built as the DraftKings one. In my opinion, this guy just got lucky. He basically did a 9-leg parlay, not really a whole lot of correlation in this one. The only correlation this guy had was the two Buccaneers players, Leonard Fournette and Rob Gronkowski, who of course did very well in terms of their target shares and touchdowns, specifically for Leonard Fournette. But Adam Thielen and Debo Samuel, of course, was the other correlation mini stack that he rolled out there. But again, this guy just got lucky. Couple good one-offs like T. Higgins and Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne was a really good play. I'll give him credit for that one. And same goes for T. Higgins, because a lot of people, for T. Higgins' sake, a lot of people were sick of him. A lot of people have steamed him in weeks past, and he hasn't performed. Of course, he gets the long touchdown in this one, and Kendrick Bourne scoring twice. He also, if you tracked usage and tracked trends, he was a guy that was on the rise in terms of a usage perspective. So good play on that part. But overall, I would say this guy got a little lucky with his lineup construction, kind of just played a bunch of one-off plays from a bunch of different games, and they ended up scoring and ended up working out for him. So congrats to him on the 300K, but he got lucky. So let's move on to my own FanDuel Sunday Million lineup. And I was able to eke out a min cash in this one. I would say there's some things to learn here for sure, but I really don't regret some of the decisions that I made in this one. The ownership was just a little bit off in terms of what I expected, but playing the Zach Wilson, Elijah Moore, and Brandon Cooks 2x1 that I played, I would have done that again. I think that was a sharp play based on the information that we had. Zach Wilson was like stone min almost at quarterback on FanDuel. So I really liked playing him in contrarian stacks because I know he has big play upside. I know he can run a little bit, and he showed that with a rushing touchdown in this game. Of course, if he had a better game, I would have done a lot better than this. But my biggest mistake here, I think, was playing James Robinson, because I played, and probably Dallas Goedert too, because he was also projected to be highly owned. If I had pivoted off of those plays and maybe even Justin Jefferson to Adam Thielen or something to contrarian stack that a little bit better, then this lineup would have been a lot better. I knew James Robinson would be highly owned. I knew Justin Jefferson, Brandon Cooks, Deebo Samuel, Cincinnati Bengals defense were going to be highly owned. And I figured because I had Zach Wilson, I was okay to eat a bit of that ownership, but I think I ate a little bit too much. If I had played two more like contrarian plays in this lineup instead of James Robinson, of course, if I would have went Leonard Fournette or Cordero Patterson or somebody that was expected to be lower owned in that price range, this would have been a much better lineup. And same goes for Dallas Goedert. If I would have played Tyler Higbee or somebody in that price range that was lower owned, maybe Pat Freiermuth, then I probably would have been in much better situation than I was in. But nonetheless, I made some money this week, so hopefully you guys did as well. As always, if you guys do want my GPP lineup advice, maybe I have some more credibility that I did come in first place in a contest and my bankroll kind of just like tripled for the DraftKings side of things going forward. I do write a weekly GPP picks that is available usually Saturday mornings for both FanDuel and for DraftKings. So make sure you guys tune into the Draft Sharks website to basically find out who I'm leaning for each week. And I also talk about some game strategy in there as well. Like, comment, subscribe if you're new. Peace out. I'll talk to you soon.